All right, I'm here today with Claas and Cara from Family Promise National, and they have been kind enough to provide a little bit of insight for us on where they see the future of philanthropy and philanthropic leadership going. I don't know, would you both like to do a brief introduction? I think that might be kind of nice. Okay, great. Claas, how about you go ahead and start us off?
Sure. So I'm Claas Ehlers. I'm the CEO of Family Promise, which is, of course, a national federated organization addressing families with children at risk of and experiencing homelessness and mobilizing the community to do so and work through our 200 affiliates. I've been at the organization since 2002, starting initially in some different program areas, becoming director of affiliate services, and then succeeding the founder in 2016 to be the CEO.
Great, thank you.
And I'm Cara Bradshaw. I'm the Chief Impact Officer at Family Promise National. So I oversee our fundraising and our marketing and communications. And I've been with the organization for over 5.5 years in the role, but was a volunteer for almost 10 years before that. And when I was in graduate school, actually worked with the organization on the Just Neighbors program, which raises awareness about the root causes of poverty and homelessness. So I think I've been connected to Family Promise since about 2007. So it's been a long time.
Wonderful. Well, the first question that I was hoping to address are any innovations or trends in philanthropy that you both think are significant right now. I know we just went through a very crazy and hectic year, and so I'm curious if you feel like that has impacted philanthropy at all, and just any other thoughts around that you all have.
Sure. I can kick that off. So obviously with the pandemic, we've seen a shift from in-person fundraising events to more online giving. We have been actually working to create more online experiences before the pandemic and had launched our first giving day that engaged affiliates to do fundraising in October of 2019. So luckily we had that infrastructure and we were already on that path forward because we felt that that was really the future. And then the pandemic, of course, made it impossible to have in-person events, and everything shifted to online, or obviously, I'll say old-fashioned, but print pieces. But the event component was obviously something that people weren't doing. We also saw that the need for robust digital marketing efforts and social media engagement was really big last year. And I think that will continue. I'd say that I think we will, when people feel comfortable, we'll probably go back to some form of in-person events. I don't really see kind of the big galas and things like that happening for a while, which is totally fine by me. I like digital giving and events where people can participate from anywhere. And we are seeing with our affiliates some success with hybrid kind of in-person experience that are combined and tied to a larger digital campaign. And then I'm seeing a lot of other nonprofits, trying to create virtual experiences for their donors and do cooking classes and things like that, where they can engage from the safety of their home. We're I'd say a huge trend that we're seeing is an increase in corporate giving. Over the last few years, corporations have made a big push and shift toward, doing a lot more around their corporate social responsibility. So there's a lot more corporate money out there, I think, for the getting for nonprofits. And then, of course, there are individuals that work at those corporations that are looking to get engaged with missions like Family Promise. And then the last thing I'll just say is, the pandemic, because it illustrated how many people are living on the edge in the United States with housing, it made the issue pretty central, I think, to the public conversation. And so we definitely saw an increase in interest in our work and in giving last year, because people really seemed to grasp the issue itself, whereas before people didn't even really know families would experience homelessness. I think seeing so much come out over the last, 4 years on the growing gap between, the wealthy and people living at lower incomes. And, people were able to really imagine and visualize what it would be like to be experiencing housing instability at a time when, you're trying to keep your family safe and you're trying to get your kids, keep them engaged in their schoolwork and trying to keep your job going. And so I think we just had a lot of people reaching out to us wanting to do something during that time.
Absolutely.
I like everything that Cara said, and I'll make these points that are related to much of what Cara said, and they're related to each other, which is around the EIA and the democratization of giving. So I think we saw this, we see this happening. I think we celebrate this happening. So one aspect of this is that you saw givers, right, whether they're individual donors, whether they're corporations, whether they're foundations, recognizing that giving directly to impact the EIA, right, to impact equity issues was really important, and also that it was a lens to look at. It also created a dynamic for a lot of giving organizations where expediency meant that they had to change their approach to giving, which actually informed the fact that they were often clinging to forms of giving that were very paternalistic, that were very unempowering of the organizations that were giving to, right? So I think that was sort of kind of a meta came out of it, and related to that is the democratization of giving as well too. Like we saw a lot more people giving. We saw people giving who were not necessarily high net worth individuals and so on, coming to us, recognizing the issues as opposed to sort of being in a donor class, right? And I think what that created is to Cara's point about galas, because Cara and I both, galas, you do galas because that's where the money was and so on. Well, the beauty of it is that you can raise money from people without having a gala, giving a lot more people sort of ultimately say, and not having to cater to the dynamic, right? Because one of the challenges with a gala always is a gala is held at a country club, usually. And most country clubs have restrictions, right? I mean, they exist because they can be restricted. So they're sort of antithetical to an organization addressing poverty issues. So we're able to sort of see our approach to donors, and Cara's been really driving this for us. We see our approach to donors and donations being much more democratized, much more aligned with our values. And I think that's going to be a change in philanthropy we'll see moving forward as well.
Yeah, and I think you're seeing that across political fundraising and other nonprofits. So I definitely think that the power of small donations that add up to a big, the crowdsourced, the crowdfunding, I think is definitely a direction that I've seen things going for sure.
Great, thank you both. And how has Family Promise National changed, or how are you all kind of changing your approach or strategies to adapt to these current both challenges and opportunities?
Just let Cara take that one. She's going to knock it out of the park.
So we were lucky in that we'd started to make that shift before the pandemic. So we were in pretty good shape and we weren't scrambling as much to bring it together. So we had already identified that we wanted to do more national campaigns that brought affiliates together that would help our brand, that we'd be able to create campaigns and templates and things that every affiliate would be able to use and personalize to their community and their donor base. And so since we were already in that in that trajectory, and we were also working on a lot of our social media content and storytelling that would engage new donors and corporate partners, last year was really almost like just a like the speed round. So we were doing it, and then last year just kind of forced us to kind of jump to that next level and start just putting out more, creating more, innovating, experimenting with content. And so we did we had planned a giving day planned for last May, and then, COVID hit, and we thought, let's turn this to an emergency fundraising campaign. And within, a week or 10 days, we had launched that, and it, raised almost $800,000. And so, then we kept getting so much interest in people wanting to do something and people wanting to spread the word. So then we did the first Night Without a Bed national campaign. And then we, so all throughout the year, we just tried to have opportunities for people to engage in both spreading the word and in fundraising. I definitely believe the peer-to-peer piece is really powerful. And we've done some things like a bunch of us at the national office a few summers ago did a triathlon, and we each raised, money for our participation in that. And, we created our Next Generation Committee, which is, a younger group, a younger demographic of donors, because we're seeing, we want to engage that next generation of philanthropic leaders in our work. And, one of the results of that is was kind of a fun example, but a group of college students who were soccer players in the Northeast, part of a conference. Since they weren't able to play and participate, they were, at home playing the FIFA, game online, and they decided to turn that into a fundraising competition and raised over $12,000. So, those are kind of some of the examples we're seeing that I really like. I love the idea that college students could say, hey, let's find a cause. Our cause resonated with them, and they liked our stories and our messaging, and they wanted to do something, and they just turned an activity that they were doing from their homes into something that was, going to help others. So that's the kind of, trajectory I like moving toward, is that those groups feel like they're empowered to do something and to raise money and make change. And, I think that that's just as powerful as, a big 6-figure corporate gift. And, we're trying to make sure that all the sources of our funding, that there's diversity in all of it.
And I'd add to Cara's comment, her last comment in particular, right? We think about what we want to accomplish as an organization and what most organizations want to accomplish. Obviously, you need money, right? No money, no mission. That's a simple proposition. But engaging these college players at these, at these Northeastern universities and so on. So yes, they raised money, but they also raised their own awareness, raised awareness within their circles, right? These are the people that are going to be coming into society and able to make, to be involved in the policies and so on that we want to see change. Whereas a large corporation, we're very thankful for their gifts, but they may not have really much of an interest in changing underlying policies. So I think what we've done, and again, it's Cara's team that has done a lot of this for us, is really look at our funding and saying, rather than it's just about generating revenue, right? How is it ultimately to bring value to the organization? And the other comment I would make is that one of the things too that we did with our unique model, since we're a federated model, historically, right, we had to raise money. Sometimes we'd be in competition with affiliates. Sometimes we could figure out ways to raise money, and, using the affiliates as part of the way that we raise money. Where we really changed that paradigm to where we're just doing incredible work raising money for our affiliates, because the money we raise ultimately needs to go to the affiliates anyway, right? We don't need, like Family Promise doesn't want to have a $30 million national budget. We want you, Denver, to have a $30 million budget because of all the impact that you could have. So we really worked hard to raise money to be able to pass through the affiliates, which benefits them, but also benefits us because it helps align affiliates on some of our best practices and their strategic pillars of our strategic plan, right? So you may have seen this. We've done a lot of pass-through to encourage affiliates to work towards prevention and diversion programs. And I think you guys were recipients of some of that money. And the purpose of that is multifaceted. One is that our funders like that we do that, and we just get more funding by doing that. It's a success in their eyes, a success in our eyes, but it also has helped us achieve getting affiliates to lean into the program we felt was really critically important. That was vital to help more families and help those affiliates be stronger and more viable. So it all integrates together rather than being about money coming in here and things we're doing here. Is how do you make that all integrated?
Absolutely. And I am curious, how does Family Promise National measure the impact that you all are having with all of these wonderful strategies?
So we've got direct metrics in terms of each program, what were the number of people served and so on. And obviously we have our national numbers served. And we in 2020, we served 60,000 more people nationally than we did the year before, which is a significant increase. And it's still like 50,000 more than we ever did at our best year, right? So we served considerably more people last year. So that is a success. But I think when you look at the federated model, it's not just about sort of numbers, throughputs, although they're indicative. One of I think the most significant things that we saw in using 2019 to 2020 as an example of this, because we made incredible investments in our affiliates in 2020, and we had done some in 2019, but a lot more in 2020. I think there's two measures that I would cite. One is the number of affiliates running prevention diversion programs doubled, right? And the other is that the average budget for an affiliate went up about 18 or 19%. And again, there's always externalities, right? We don't want to take credit or get blamed for everything that happens because there's a lot of externalities. But for the most part, that was because of the work we had done to help affiliates diversify. Because once an affiliate's diversified, it's a more successful fundraising operation itself too, because it's just a more successful organization.
Absolutely. And that actually leads really well into the next question around how you all are addressing diversity and then also inclusion and equity at Family Promise National.
And Robin, do you want to put a finer point on that question? Like what you mean within ourselves as an organization as a voice on it, or with our affiliates, or all three?
I would say all three within the organization.
I was afraid you would say that. Yeah. So as the people working in family homelessness know, and even if they're not trained on this, it's something that's pretty easy to pick up empirically. But more than 50% of the families in this country experiencing homelessness are Black. The majority of people experiencing homelessness are people of color. There is one reason for that. You can tie other reasons to it, but there's one reason that is structural racism, right? We have a legacy of deprivation of families of color when it comes to housing, very specifically through actual policy, through things like redlining, exclusionary zoning, through predatory financing, right, through a whole litany. And it leads to a myriad of other issues, because housing ownership is the primary transfer of wealth for people who are other than people in the top 2%, right? Most people have their wealth because their parents had housing that they could leverage or sell or pass on or whatever. So it's this incredible driving factor in poverty. And as an organization, Family Promise, we knew this, we talked about it a little bit, but we hadn't centered on it. And that was a real shortfall. And it's a shortfall that I am responsible for. So one of the things that we recognized and spurred by the killing of George Floyd is we needed to center on those issues of equity. So a couple of different things have happened. As a national organization, we looked internally, and we've gone through a process to move ourselves to being a consciously anti-racist organization. And I say process because we were certainly not there yet, but we're trying to move that way. We also recognize that we have a public forum, and we took that public forum, but we were very intentional about it. We tried to tie what we said to housing specifically, rather than more kind of broad platitudinous elements. And we really wanted to make sure that we were doing things right. What I kept saying to everybody is, we want to get this right, not right now. And I think you saw a lot of organizations making out their statements and everything, but were they actually doing things to structurally change? So we've done a number of actions for our affiliates, webinars, educational elements. We have started dialogue groups among affiliate staff to really start grappling with these issues. We've created Racial Justice Council that meets twice a month, and everything that we do, we run through them, and they're an empowered group. They're not just a group to to kind of review things. They're really empowered. We also created an affinity group for affiliate leaders who are Black, so that we're starting to create all those mechanisms. And we are leaning into, and after our innovation summit, our keynote speaker for innovation summit is Amanda Indiri, who's a leading speaker on the issues of equity and homelessness. We are doing more and more work with affiliates to really grapple with what is their DEIA journey, and how do we start with an assessment? How do we give them the tools? Some are racing ahead, right? It's not monolithic at all. But what are the ways that we as a national organization can help each one of our affiliates move towards becoming an anti-racist organization as well?
Absolutely. All right. And then the final question I had for you both is just any wisdom or advice that you would like to share with other leaders of nonprofit organizations, or that you would like to share with the leaders of all the FP affiliates.
I think one thing I would say is, and something we strive to do, we've just been working on we've put out our core values as an organization, and we've worked on what some of our values and our strategy is for our organizational culture and our hiring practices. And it's something that it's very important to me, is that we definitely put people first. It's tempting to want to put efficiency in process and output, how much we can accomplish, have that be the ultimate goal. And I think we have a really healthy culture of putting people first, making sure that people feel valued, that their work-life balance is healthy, that they always know that especially last year, if there was a challenge, a health challenge or a challenge with a family member, that always comes first, that someone on the team is always going to help if you need to take time off. And that when you put people first and they feel it, all the other things fall into place. And, hearing from other friends and people who worked at organizations that didn't have that, their experience of going virtual has not been nearly as positive as mine has been, and I think a lot of others. And because we had really good communication, camaraderie, and trust, and so shifting to going virtual and not being able to see each other all in person, there was a really good baseline already there. And I think all of that, always starts at the top. So I think leaders, when they prioritize people like that and are really there to help, people succeed and be empowered, I just think that's when people do their best work, not when it's just like deadline. And, obviously there's accountability, but I think last year we just really saw the value of being a people-centric organization.
I would echo everything that Cara said, and I would add this, that you need to take a long view, right, and recognize that we're taking, everything's incremental steps towards that long view, but to have the long view and not to overreact to dynamics of any one particular time. And I would couple that with having an equity lens on everything you do is critically important. And you will never make the wrong decision if it is informed by equity. And you will make better decisions the more that you bring people who have been disenfranchised into power to make those decisions.
Wow, wonderful. Well, thank you both so much. That was very informative and very inspirational as well.
Good.
I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Robin, it was terrific. It's so nice to meet you. Hope